names for the different climbs. You know, people will, you know, scale the sheer face of a rock without gear. Some will use some gear, some will use a lot of gear. Gal, I mean, she looked like a rake. You could see every muscle and so on. And she was clinging on an overhang. And the National Geographic always has beautiful pictures. And she said, whatever her name is, X, a living example of slow twitch muscle fiber at work. Good point there, okay? Again, we just had the Boston Marathon. Usually don't see great big guys and gals can do marathons, but the first people across the line usually are what, of Kenyan descent? They have a lot more type 1s than probably the sprinters have. So kind of start formulating, wrapping your head around that a little bit, okay? Microanatomy, again, we spoke of that a little bit, okay? You have the big muscle, okay? And if we go into smaller bundles, okay? Okay? The skeletal muscles are made up of many muscle fibers held in place by connective tissue, sometimes known as fascia. Muscle fibers are also made up of myofibrils, composed of a series of repeating segments called sarcomeres. Sarcomeres are made up of thick myosin and thin actin myofilaments that are the functional contracting unit of skeletal muscle. Okay? I think we're going to go to a frame here, enlarging that. There it is. Yeah, the sliding filament model. This is in your book too, gang. When acetylcholine is released by what? The central nervous system and detected, calcium is released. This is all at the cellular level. Calcium exposes binding sites along the actin for the myosin to attach. If sufficient ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is present, cross bridges are formed and the myosin pulls the actin toward the center, thereby shortening the sarcomere. Contraction, okay? Interesting thing, acetylcholine is imperative in this model, okay, with muscle action. Where else do we see acetylcholine? Anybody, any guesses? Dum, dum, dum. Alzheimer's, presenility, dementia, all the rest of it. Sometimes they'll load them up on acetylcholine. Okay, anybody heard of fat burners? Anybody ever taken fat burners to get all buff and good looking? Come on, admit it. Admit it. I have, when I was competing. Anybody ever looked at the fat burners and see what they have?
A bunch of that.
Huh?
A bunch of the...
Choline or acetylcholine. Does it work? Maybe slightly. Now the side benefit is though you get a lot smarter when you take them. Anyways, there's a lot of junk out there, gang. So we're going to start reading some labels too. But again, in our body, a lot of differing compounds and so forth are used for different things. That's why I just wanted to make reference to that. Could come up later, okay? Connective tissues, okay? Two types of connective tissue directly related to joint movement. Collagen and elastic fibers, okay? Collagens, okay? Tensile strength, we spoke of that earlier, didn't we, Todd? And relative inextensity, okay? Limiting motion if you have collagen, okay? Found in tendons and ligaments, right? Elastic fibers made up of amino acids that allow for extensibility, surround the sarcomere, or are found in other organs. Tendons are tough cord-like tissues that transmit force from the muscle to the bone. We get that. Ligaments contain greater mixture of collagen and elastic fibers, taking on various shapes that support a joint by attaching bone to bone. Remember, ligament, bone to bone. Tendon, muscle to bone. Now, what happens when we got the guy trying to get himself buff, right? Takes those old anabolicos. Everybody's heard of those, right? The steroids. What do? Synthetic testosterone to what? Hopefully increase what? Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy in a muscle, okay? They do a good job at helping develop muscle. Yeah, they do a really good job. That's why they're so popular.
A long term though?
No, well, I mean, we're not gonna get into the philosophic of that. What doesn't grow with steroids, though?
Oh.
Ta-da! Nathan, you got that? Tendons don't grow very well with steroids. So what happens is, you've got a muscle that was one size, now it's a huge size, okay? The tendons didn't grow though, did they? So when I hear stuff like in the NFL, oh, a pec tear, or a bicep tear, or a bicep pulling away.
You can also get that through just the imbalance of your workout.
Oh, certainly.
Like if you don't, like, cause I got my AC, I have an AC tear,
Mhm.
and it's just because if you don't work out, if you don't warm up your ligaments and tendons, and you concentrate too much on the bigger muscles,
Yeah.
the finer muscles and the ligaments
Sure.
suffer. So.
Oh, of course.
It's-
Yeah, I wasn't trying to paint everything with a broad brush.
No, henceforth, I was just, because that's what my orthopod told me. I mean, he said, well, because I'm like, well, why did I work out all the time? Why did it break? Why did it tear and break? He's like, well, it's just because you just didn't incorporate stretching into your workout
Yeah,
because you have a buildup of collagen.
yeah. And collagen isn't really flexible. That's what I'm confused about one thing, gang. Why are they injecting collagen into people? Is that for, well, Botox isn't the same thing as collagen, but is that for wrinkle remediation? Okay, I guess, come on now.
No trouble.
I do it all the time. I don't know what's your problem.
I have a home kit.
No, because I've heard of that, using collagens for, you know, in the vanity realm, maybe to fill up wrinkles, I don't know.
Yeah, they're putting it in like, yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I was
now
gonna
what's
say.
interesting, yeah, the Botox too, when did that find another use as? Besides the old wrinkle doctor with Botox?
No,
what
it's a
it-
paralytic, isn't it? It's some sort of chemical from a organism that
Yeah,
paralyzes you.
Bacteria, toxin,
Migraine headache mitigation. That took me by, so you can look beautiful and get rid of your, no.
Or just drink
Mi-
more water.
Migraines are not fun. I don't, fortunately don't suffer from them. I think I've only ever had one in my lifetime, but it wasn't fun. If you have chronic migraines, it can be debilitating.
I have a question about
Yes.
this.
Of course.
It's really, and I guess it's interesting because I have a friend that I just got back with an event with.
Mhm. Sure.
And he doesn't do any calisthenics or any other bodyweight exercises or anything like that. But he is incredibly strong and his endurance is through the roof.
Mhm.
He says he's basically worked the trades all his life.
Mhm.
And he's lanky and just tough and strong as anything.
Sure.
What, it's not due to the size of his muscles.
Yep.
So how is that, you heard the term farmer strong,
Yes.
What is
Or
that?
old man strong.
old man strong, yeah.
Yes. Good
That's the
question.
strength of your
I
tendons.
think you got a lot more.
Good question, and we spoke of that in brief, remember? Okay, gang. If I don't know the answer to something, I'm not gonna tell you that I do. I have a theory.
Okay,
Those kind of folks, perhaps like me, we have I call it tensile strength,
right,
okay? The muscle is able to influence so much of a pull, but when it does so, it does it fully, okay? So that might be aligned to the type 1s and type 2X, 2A and 2X fibers, but it's sometimes also known as tendon strength, okay? When we go when we do our exploration there, we'll talk about it. Hey, Anish, see you. Address. Excuse me, gang, just for a minute.
Yes.
You gotta, excuse me, You have to.
I've always thought that's more of a
You're not leaving because you're not in the dorm.
overall strength and like a
Okay.
density as
Guys,
opposed to
come
just
back and see
purely
me,
bulk.
okay?
Oh, okay.
So you like he said, as
Yeah,
opposed to
Couple of my boys.
going more towards your large muscles, if you focus
Right.
everything
Yeah.
like a full
It's
body
muscle
exercise
memory.
like farming would be, you just do everything.
Now farming, again, full body.
Or
Yeah.
carpentry.
Okay.
How lumber is he though? I mean, can he touch his toes?
Oh, yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be, obviously, there's probably a genetic component to everything. Yeah, I can't, none of us are his physique, close, you know, I mean, if you sort of mix both of your physiques together, you're a little bit more mass and you're a little bit thinner. So he's just like a normal looking guy. I don't know how to describe him. He's
Yeah.
tall, but he's just strong as hell.
He is probably, again, genetics are a factor, but you said trades, the hard work, okay? The hard work is all compound movement. It's very little isolation movement. So, his synergists, okay, are probably developed to a higher degree than a lot of people's otherwise would be.
What is synergist?
Okay. We're getting ahead of ourselves, so let me find a,
Makes the fun part of the class though.
yeah,
in
it does.
my opinion.
It does. Let me get out, I have a very good handout to help us with that.
I guess for an example, we do buddy carries.
Mhm.
He picked me up on his shoulders. I weighed 230 pounds, and carried me no problem.
Yep.
I mean,
Just sacks of feed.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I could definitely say that just there's so many, like, in my opinion, most heavily bulked people who do nothing but curls and general basic workouts, they look large, but they're very weak. Where most, I mean, that's, I guess, my relationship with the military, well, I've seen plenty of people who can be very large, but they can't do a lot of things that are necessary.
Right.
So you get
Yeah,
a lot
that's-
more of a
that-
broad exercise, and you can get more strong with a smaller build.
Yeah, that same meathead in the weight room couldn't lift.
Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
His,
I've seen-
firefighter's full turnout gear.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I've seen plenty of guys that are bulked up and can't even climb a rope.
Yeah.
It's just they're really weak.
Which we'll do. Again,
But that's a problem.
Todd,
My
I
strength
think-
is not equal to my weight.
Yeah.
Todd, I think probably when we do a little working out together, I'm gonna probably look like your friend. Like I said, I don't push a whole lot of weight, but the pull-ups, push-ups, dips, climbing rope.
It's
that's-
beneficial because you have less body weight, so
Yeah.
you don't need as much muscle.
And good conversation. Let's divert for a minute, okay? I've got another really nice handout here, though. This is one I put together myself, that's why it's so awesome. But no, I'm just kidding.
I just handed 3.
I need one though. Here we go. No, my girlfriend and I put this together, actually. Yep. Okay. Let's get Michaela back, though, before we... I was gonna take a break pretty quick. But anyways, so what Todd had said, what do I mean by a synergist? Okay, when we have a movement, okay, generally we have a prime mover of some sort. So for instance, if we're doing chest press, our primary prime mover would be what? Our pectoralis major, okay? But we also have synergists, tries and front delt, okay? Then the stable, if we're talking about a bench press, then our stabilizers would probably be our bi, okay? Another way of thinking this too, going a little bit deeper, you also see on the sheet, we have agonist and antagonist muscles, okay? Okay, the prime mover can be the agonist, okay? And then the antagonist is the opposition. So, for instance, if I'm doing a curl, okay, or a sit-up, right? Everything old is new again, sit-ups are big, gang. My agonist muscle would be primarily my rectus abdominis, right, in that 8-pack. Well, if this is contracting, causing trunk flexion, something else got to happen, otherwise I couldn't bend, right? The antagonist, then, would be my erector spinae and my multifidus. Because if you had two things contracting simultaneously, as Nathan would know, you got what? Seizure, right? If everything's contracting at once. Okay, so think about it. Let's talk about the crunch or the sit-up, right? Our agonist or our prime mover, rectus abdominis, antagonist, the lower muscles of our back here. That's the reason when I have to go on duty and I'm not in the gym, I'll do a bunch of crunches. The reason being is, if when I check on duty and I have to go to a fight that's particularly nasty and get us some ground fighting, baby, that's all back. I need that back loose, but I can't train my back at home as well. So at least with the antagonistic action, I've warmed it up through what? Being it stretched, okay? We are right, we diverted a little bit, Michaela. Some nice, you've probably heard these with Mr. Voster, did you not? Okay, so anyways, this is, like I said, this is the sheet that we put together, Jan and I did, just to tie some things together for chapters 2 and 3. But let's go through this, okay? So, and we talked about these planes of motion prior, the sagittal, transverse, and the frontal. Okay, this is important. Muscle action, isometric, concentric, and eccentric. So, isometric, of course, we know in the 70s there was the movement about isometric exercise, okay? One force being opposed by another, but not moving, okay? What's more important to us, though, is concentric and eccentric. These terms get thrown out a lot, but a lot of people don't know what they're meaning, okay? The concentric portion of a movement is the shortening when muscles are being recruited, okay? The eccentric is the lengthening, okay? So, the easiest way I can illustrate that is, because all the rage again, everything old is new again, eccentric loading to build muscle. Todd's nodding, okay?
Well, I mean, I don't have any specialized knowledge, but I've watched some interviews and saw this old gym guy, freaking old guy, but he came and did amazing exercises on a series of bars that these muscle-headed steroid guys were like, you know, their jaws were open, and the guy was very eloquent in his speech, but he was just saying people don't train the eccentric movements.
Yes. So, we have Michaela at the bench press, okay? Do you do any, I know your family's very fit, Michaela, you bench, don't you?
A little bit.
Yeah,
Sure
what do
way.
you do? Just, for example, do you know what a repetition maximum would be for you?
I have no idea.
Her body weight of 90
Well,
pounds.
take a guess. Let's say, how much do you weigh? This is, okay, say she has 100, let's put 135 on the Olympic bar, then say you're able to rep that, okay? Olympic bar weighs 45 pounds, right? 45-pound plate on each side, so, I misspoke too, my apology. We'd have 125, right? Let's do it again.
You're right.
135,
40.
I had it right the first time. Yep, I had it right the first time. Okay, anyways, you can do that. What the eccentric load then would be, we'd put another 45-pound plate on each side of the bar, so we have 225 pounds now, okay? You can't concentrically push that up, okay?
You can slowly lower it down.
Yeah, but everybody's following me? But with your arms extended, then I'm gonna lift that bar off and hand it to you. If you can return that bar to your chest, across your sternum with control, that would be an example of what we call eccentric loading. Okay? Now, and again, everything old is new again. A lot of lifters got away from that, but a lot of lifters are getting back to it now. That's why I said it's fun to be in the realm of fitness right now, because there seems to be a lot of open attitude and mixing and meldings of different attitudes, okay? So eccentric loading can be used again. Let me give you another example, okay? Doing a basic dip, again, men have different proportion of muscle bundles than females do and so forth. So sometimes women are harder to make gains than men. by design. But there's no reason why women shouldn't do dips if we can develop that. So again, probably Michaela can do a few dips. But if you couldn't, Michaela, I would coach you. I'd have you hop up on the dip stand with your arms extended and then return to the starting point very slowly. You'd be opposing the weight of your body. That would be another example of what we call eccentric loading, okay? The concentric's easy. That's doing the motion, the desired motion under your own power. So getting back to our bicep curl, this would be my concentric, my eccentric would be going back to the starting point. Sir?
Well, you're going, as you were saying, with extra loads on the eccentric. Will that then potentially help you with your potential for concentric?
It could. That's the rationale behind it, is to try to get, again, nobody stated it in this terms, but if you're creating
Left
micro trauma,
Yeah.
one way or the other, strength
It's
should
still in
ensue.
that mass, yeah.
That's the whole idea. The rationale being, the bigger the bundles are, the more ability to do work. Okay.
That's the videos I've seen too, about pull-ups. If you can't
Just
do
have a really
it-
good spotter.
Well, if you can't do it, start off with chin-ups, you can't do chin-ups, then you do, down, pull up, and then you jump up, and then
Yep.
you slowly
Yeah,
resist it down for a minute.
That's
I've
why
seen
we
a lot
have-
of girls do jumps.
And then, once you do that for a while, assuming you can build up to at least one chin-up.
Yeah.
You do a chin-up, and then you start jumping up and
That's, God bless you, that's how we do it. Yeah, we don't have boy and girl exercises, we just do it all. Okay, so, turn on the second page. Again, this is a really good handout. I made it myself, no. My girlfriend did a lot of it. Anyways, but a lot of terms you're gonna see here. Just kind of put in shirt sleeve English, so. Exercise movement analysis, possible actions, concentric, eccentric, or isometric. Possible roles again then, agonist, antagonist, or synergistic. Okay, we got some avid lifters in here, all right? Nathan, you look like you just tear it up on the wide grip pull-up bar. You got that wide look about you.
I like to cheat a lot.
Okay, well anyways, can I pick on you? I'm gonna pick on everybody, okay? We're all friends here. So, again, Todd said, what would the synergist be? Okay, one of those, there's pairs that have worked the world over. Meat and potatoes, right? Wine and cheese, okay? And all the rest of it. If somebody wants to train back, what do they usually also train in conjunction with back?
Chest. Well, if they're,
biceps, isn't it?
Back and buys is what,
I alternate.
okay, sure.
I do
But
opposing.
where I was going with that is, I wanted to include the synergist. If you are doing a wide grip pull-up, okay, which I like to do lots of them, all right? Clearly, I'm trying to recruit the long muscles of my back, okay, a little bit of rhomboid, okay, upper portion of my back, all right? I'm getting synergistic action though from my buys, the co-contraction, okay? So, if we're talking about doing a long pull of the long muscles of the back, your buys would be the synergist. That's why it's so nice to train back and buys together or in rapid succession, because the synergist is already being what we call pre-exhausted. So it's being primed to be exposed to micro trauma, and again, in sleep and nutrition and so forth, for it to be repaired and get larger, okay, the bundles, all right? I don't do a whole lot of single bicep workout with bars and so forth, but I have pretty decent arms. It's because I do so much back work, okay? My synergistic action. My goal right now, because even though I work in the gym, I don't get to train a whole lot, 'cause I'm usually helping other folks. But when I do stuff, I do make it count. So my two favorite exercises that I can do in rapid succession that are compound movements, okay, that involve usually circumduction or some multiplanar movement would be, I like doing pull-ups and I like doing dips, because all I have to do is step to the corner of the room and I can rack off 15, 20 of them, go back to what I was doing, maybe about 3 minutes, go back and do the same. If I do that 4 or 5 times, anybody done a pull-up, they're pretty tough sometimes. So, food for thought, okay? Levers, torque, don't wanna get into a physics. Center of gravity, those, you'll see COG, okay? The center of gravity is the point where the mass is considered to concentrate and where balance on either side in all places, okay? You change the center of gravity, then you start getting postural deviations, not good. Now, no doubt then, why you have postural balance mentioned next. Balance is the ability to maintain the body's position over its BOS, its base of support. We mentioned that earlier. Even doing a push-up, if we elevate the feet or elevate one of the limbs, we've messed with the base of support. Okay, the spine, fully grown, healthy spine has 24 movable vertebrae and 3 basic normal curves, okay? And we talk about neutral alignment. We'll read that later. Okay, deviations, okay? Scoliosis, that's one of your deviations, okay? You also have kyphosis and lordosis, all right? We're gonna get to that in a second because I have another really cool handout. The pelvis and the lumbar spine that I mentioned earlier. The position of the pelvis plays a crucial role in the determination of the forces applied at the lumbar spine, okay? Michaela, you had Dr. Roster, I had Dr. O. Did they call this the bucket or the bowl? He didn't? Dr. O did, okay? He called it the bowl. Pelvic tilt has much to do with your posture. All right. Okay. I'll talk about that. Oh, it's helpful to think of the pelvis as a bucket of water. We can thank Dr. O for that, okay? The direction the water spills out of the bucket is the direction of the pelvic tilt, obviously. Okay. Necessity for neutral spine during exercise. Okay, fitness professionals can promote good posture and muscular balance by having participants perform all activities with as close to neutral spine alignment as possible. Anybody know somebody that is a Pilates practitioner? They will beat you over the head with that, but for good reason. One of the ladies that I certified is actually 2 of them, Pilates experts, and they have all the certifications and whatnot. One of them is going to come speak to us. But again, neutral spine, neutral spine, neutral spine. That is their mantra. Okay? Now, speaking of that, getting a little ahead of ourselves, but if we want to do, hold that thought and we'll take a quick break here.
Hey, Chris,
Yes.
so how are you gonna be here on Monday?
I talked to Penny about that already. Penny's gonna handle it
Okay.
for next week, and then we're gonna work on everything else the week after.
Okay.
For everybody else in class, actually, I just started recording everything. Something about putting it on a YouTube channel so we can all reference it for study pieces.
Great,
If you guys are interested.
because I normally say very stupid things.
I mean, the discussion part is always beneficial. I don't know how legal it is for this whole thing, so we'll figure that out. Who cares?
Gang, you don't need all kinds of expensive gear. If you're doing an assessment on somebody's posture, hang a plumb line and observe that person in front or behind the plumb line. You'd be amazed at what you can tell by somebody just looking at them. Okay? Depending on how baggy or how tight the clothes are, the first thing that's gonna pop out at you is usually side dominance. The dominant side's gonna be a little saggy, especially the older they get. Also though, if you look at them, for instance, this would be toward the spine and they're facing out. you can see different curves of the spine quite readily. If you have them stand to this side of the plumb line, then you can see where the natural curve of the spine has deviated. So, with that thought, this next handout, albeit looking rudimentary, is from a 1950s bodybuilding magazine. And what it's just showing you, if we talk about deviations of the spine, these will be in your text. But sometimes the text gets a little too involved in it, and this does a very good job at showing. Got two there? Okay.
That guy looks really built for 1950s.
He does. I'll share some of these with you, gang. But anyways, so if we're talking about deviations of the spine, I'm gonna, and it might not be fair, but I'm gonna use some slang terms to help you remember. Okay. Anybody go to church ever? Once a year, whether you need it or not, kind of thing? Okay. Church is awesome. I hated going as a kid. Now I'm glad that I went. As a kid, I went to please my mom, because my mom was a saint. But I'm so glad that I went now, because I learned a lot of stuff that then kind of felt trivial to me, but now it has new meaning to me, okay, from a historical perspective at the very least. But while I mentioned church, after a ceremony or a sermon, there's fellowship hall. And in those days, people would be doing this inside so you could smell coffee and cigarettes in fellowship hall. But you see the little old ladies, and what do they have?
Scoliosis.
Usually kyphosis. Go ahead and stand up for me, Todd, if you would, just for a second. Gang, this is a very good job. If you see the hump right about here in the rounded shoulders, but men too can be affected, but women, that's an easy way. Remember this from this day forward. That's usually, put your head down, Todd, in front there, kind of round your shoulders in. There, that bump there, that's a kyphotic curve, okay? Thank you, sir. And it does a nice job of showing that, okay? The lordotic curve, your pelvis will be kind of pushed forward. Then scoliosis is more of the S shape. But again, not very technical, but very good at illustrating that. And again, like I said, you guys want to see my magazine collection, I brought part of it with me, so when you take a break, we can do that, okay? But anyways, let's move on then. So we kind of deviated, but we deviated for a good reason, okay? Let's get through this chapter and we'll take a break, okay? Okay, flexibility, okay? Soft tissues contribute to the total resistance to joint movement, okay? And we got some percentages here, all right? I've never quizzed somebody on that. But other factors that may impede or impact flexibility, of course, age, muscle strength and muscle endurance, not the same thing, gang. Gender, okay, joint structure and past injury, what you're carrying around. Oh, there you go.
Sorry.
No,
Should
go
have
ahead.
told you before.
Don't let my little bald head make a glare on that. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyways, so we'll talk about this a little bit later. Like I said, gang, I wish we had more time to spend in the gym, but here's one thing that we wanted to talk about though. Muscle strength and muscle endurance ain't the same thing. Now, the police academy, all right, they focus primarily on muscle endurance. Finally, they got it right, okay? What is your brother's name, Michaela? The one that was in the police academy? Yeah, wonderful physique. Her brother is an animal. He's got what I would consider to be the ideal physique. Looks like a Greek statue. Just nice and muscular, but with that wiry look too. He'll make a terrific police officer. But one thing is, MCOs, the sanctioning body for police officers, before they used to have all these like dummy drags and that kind of thing. Now, they only test people in 4 criteria: push-up, sit-up, vertical leap, and this half-mile shuttle run that's a killer. But again, mostly muscle endurance. The only ballistic event they have is the vertical leap, okay? Because they found being muscle bound doesn't save people. It's having good endurance that helps. Now, so the 1 minute push-up, 1 minute sit-up, the shuttle run, and the vertical leap. The shuttle run, it's only a half mile, okay? How it's configured though is you have 2 cones and they're set 88 feet apart. 15 round trips equals a half mile. No sweat, right?
All the turning.
It's a bear.
At what time? What's the time limit?
Well, it depends. The entry versus exit criteria, I believe for a female is, I don't have the figures in front, I'm only guessing. I think female's like 4:30, male's like under 4. And it doesn't seem like a lot, and we can do 1 or more if we wish. It's kind of fun to do some fitness evaluation. But
That's
if-
the exit? Under 4?
that's actually, yeah, entry's a little bit lower. Anyways, like I said, I was a runner. This stuff was perfect for me. It was things I could already do well, okay? My shuttle run kind of stinks now. I still can make muster, but I've had 3 knee surgeries since I've been in the academy. But again, they finally got it right. But so differing, we'll get some evaluations later, of course, but that's what they have made a change over the last several years to muscle endurance. Okay, shoulder girdle, okay? We've seen some of these before. Okay, the muscles of the shoulder girdle act on the scapula primarily to stabilize it, okay? At the scapula, you have elevation, okay, and depression, okay? So you got your traps here, okay? The serratus, lower trap, okay, levator scapulae, the rhomboids. People forget about these. Now, it's funny the serratus is mentioned because from the side you see it here, okay? Of course, the pectoralis minor. Serratus in primates isn't nearly as important as it is in quadrupeds, okay? Quadrupeds, they can almost not live without a functioning serratus because it also aids in their breathing, in their respiration. Humans, not so much, okay? And shoulder's the most mobile joint in the body, prone to injury. Total of 9 muscles that cross the shoulder joint, okay? And we're not gonna go into each individual muscle, that's why you have a book, okay? But 7 muscles originating from each scapula, 2 muscles originating from the axial